All right, let me just throw up this screen. We'll let people kind of filter in. This just kind of goes on screen and circulates through just while we say hi to everybody. I think we're going to be lower. I was saying, some of you just got in, I was saying that now's about the time we start seeing nicer weather and people start tapping out for summer. So let's go there. You should be seeing that screen come up now. Just give me a thumbs up, Ryan, if you can see the rotating. Okay, yeah, you see it.
Just wanted to do a
microphone.
Oh, just wanted to do a microphone check. You can hear me obviously because I interrupted you. So.
No, you're good. You're good. So we'll we stay pretty informal. Anybody got plans for the summer? Speaking of the nicer weather.
I have a 2-year-old, so it's going to be a lot of outdoor time this summer for sure. While he while he's still not addicted to screens yet, you know.
Yeah, understood. You got your kiddie pool all ready to go? That'll be
kiddie pool, amazing. Trampoline, playground, but hoping to also kind of go to some parks, and there's a zoo. There's actually like a zoo that's not too far from London, Ontario, where I live. So it's like 40-minute drive. So it's a lot more practical than going to the Toronto Zoo.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. You guys have there's what's that other place? He might be a bit too young for that, but it's a kid-oriented spot. Gardens, Storybook Gardens.
Yeah, Storybook Gardens. Yeah, for sure. We'll be hitting that up with the 2-year-old. That's perfect for him. Yeah.
We waited too long and took our boys, and they wandered around there. I forget how old they were. They weren't that old, but they were clearly too cool for it, and they were like, "Yeah, this is like."
Yeah, over the age of about 6.
It's not. They were just a little bit.
Especially
over
a boy is not going to want to go over the age of about 6. Yeah. Girl maybe 7 or 8, but.
Anybody else got plans for the summer?
Yeah, it's Ryan here. About 3 weeks, I guess. Yeah. I volunteered for a week at Navy League summer camp. Kind of cool, actually.
Wow. How old are the participants?
9 to 12.
Oh, you're brave. So you do a whole week, and it's like a away? I don't know where that is.
Yeah, it's we have a all the cadet groups in Saskatchewan have a camp that they use, so we get it for a week, and we do rifle shooting, archery, canoeing, sailing, bunch of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I can imagine.
You guys making miss Canada. I left Toronto 4 years ago during the lockdown. I've been in Egypt ever since, but hearing you speak about the beautiful Canadian summer making me miss it.
Yeah, well, it's short, but it's nice.
You're going to try and convince us there's canoeing in Ontario?
There's tons of canoeing in Ontario.
I know. You ever been to Quetico?
No.
I think that's still Ontario, isn't it?
Near it, but
okay,
not to it.
Beautiful country up there.
Oh yeah, it's the whole country's beautiful. Although I say we live in the boring part where we are. I always like the West the best myself, but teach their own. Our family's
a big fan of the lakes.
Yeah, there's lots of lakes all over. Our family does
Saskatchewan, Ryan. I still miss it actually.
How long were you there?
Most actually is the believe it or not, it's a weird thing, is the sky, because here in Ontario the clouds are usually a lot lower to the ground, but in Saskatchewan there's these crazy like pie in the sky cloudscapes, and it's a weird thing to miss, but I definitely miss that big time. Yeah, this summer in Saskatchewan, I miss it. Here in theory, the weather is overall better, but It feels like it's either too hot or it's like rainy and miserable.
I forget. I heard it somewhere. Saskatchewan and maybe Alberta get the most sunshine in all of Canada. So it's like, well, that's one good thing for living here.
They definitely do, right? Even though it's super cold, it's because here, if it's super cold, it's not sunny ever.
Yeah.
But there, it's like you'll have, it's -40, but at least it's nice, sunny outside. So it's like a mood lifter in a weird way.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely.
Ryan, Ryan, are you in Ontario or which part of
No,
Canada
I'm
are
in
you in?
Regina, Saskatchewan.
Oh, right. Okay.
We all feel sorry for you, Ryan.
Actually, this winter was awesome. Like we had 1 week of really cold weather, and then the rest our average was like +5. There were even a few days where we got up to +20. It was weird.
Wow.
I remember the first time I visited Regina, we drove in from the east, on Trans-Canada, and you realize that the entire city is below the level, like it's like a crater.
Yeah.
The entire city
Yeah.
is in a crater, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you drive, and then you drive from the north to the south, and the same thing, like you drive downhill into Regina. So it's
Yep.
I couldn't believe that they actually dug Wascana Lake by hand in the Depression.
Yeah.
It was like
I
don't
mean,
know if
they
anyone's
use
ever been there,
shovels.
been there. It's incredible. Like it's like a 5-acre lake, and they dug it by hand, like in the Depression, as a make-work project.
Yeah. I don't know all the history, but yeah, like it was they wanted people to work and pay them something, and they dug a lake.
They did the same thing in Ontario. Like all of the pine forests that are north of Toronto, in the Davis Drive, Wellington, Aurora Side Road area that are all east of Yonge Street. All of those, there's entire ghost towns because in the Depression, they bussed workers from Toronto up there, and they built these towns, and they forested that entire area that was it was all just like empty fields, right? At the time, no forest. And so they reforested that entire area in the Depression. And if you walk through those forests, you can literally find wood buildings with barracks in them and bunks and, stuff. It's really amazing, the stories behind that.
That is really cool. I didn't know that. I've lived here my whole life. I had no idea. Like, that's what I get.
Are we
like
going to do
Vivian-
anything? Are
Vivian
we going to
Forest?
talk about dynamics today, guys? Or are we going to?
No, it's too much fun.
No, Rick. No, this is social networking time.
What's
Take your business
dynamic?
over.
Malcolm.
Anyhow,
like
welcome
the
everybody.
Vivian Forest, for example, is a good example of that. Like outside
Which
of
one?
Toronto. Vivian Forest area, the
Okay.
Vivian Reforestation area, which is like that whole area, McAuley, from 48 all the way over to 5th Concession or Warden, is all the trees in there were planted in the Depression. Almost all the trees. It's incredible.
I know there's stretches you drive through up there, and you can see that they're man-made forests because everything's linear, right?
Yeah.
So, but I had no idea that that's where that dated back to.
Mhm.
That's wild. Anybody else? Any summer plans? Rick, what are you doing this summer?
I'm going fishing, and I'm going golfing.
True story.
That's right.
One
That's
last one
about
from me.
it. My sister's got a place up in Quebec, and I usually go up there, and there's a world-class golf course on a world-class lake. So I'll just hang out there for a couple of weeks because I just got back from Europe from Dynamics Minds and Resco's conference. So I was 2.5 weeks in Europe and then a week before at Dynamics Minds. So I don't need to travel anywhere else till the fall.
Yeah.
I'm
No
done.
doubt. No doubt.
Okay, so we should kick
Well-
things off. We're 11 minutes after.
Oh, Rick, you and the timekeeper. I like it. I'm going to pull up the Doug thing. So my mentality is always, let's take 15 to just chat and get to know each other.
Yeah.
But let's scan this for a sec. I've got the Doug deck pulled up. If I can figure out how to get to it. And so in the absence of Liz, I'm going to do let's see if I can, it's going to cooperate. In the absence of Liz and Doug, they had some conflicts, couldn't make it. So I said I'd be happy to join in. That's a black screen. I don't think it's going to come up. That's what I was worried about. I'm using the browser version of Teams, so we'll just stick to this. And so we said we'd be happy to share some information about it. Usually I try and do this off the hip, which they've never slapped my hands for, but they would be well served to do so because I shouldn't, especially since we have this. So if you're not familiar with this group in particular, so first of all, welcome, the Dynamics 365 Canadian National CRM CE user group. And so we try to focus on content. We try for 10 months of the year. So we're coming up on summer. So we'll take a little hiatus, which you'll see in a minute. But right now we are really just trying to wrap up this stream. We've had pretty consistent sessions all the way through. Super excited. And all of this happens because, and thanks to efforts from people like Rick and Diane, and also Doug, Dynamics User Group, giving us the platform for the meetups to be able to socialize those things and get people registered. So gonna give them a little overview if you're not familiar with them. So they've been growing pretty quickly over the last few years. I remember back in the days when they just had even just low thousands, and here they are, 44,000+ people. They just hosted a conference, almost doubled, or I think they even more than doubled their attendance at that, which was amazing. And so great to see them picking up steam and doing things like that. You can see a little bit about them here in their website, worth a quick visit. They've got a number of different programs that they make use of and make available for you. So they've got open forum discussions. They've got in-person events like DynamicsCon Live, which we'll talk about in a sec. You can see up in the right-hand side of this slide, free virtual year-round content, all kinds of virtual events or regional events, and sessions like these hosted all over the world at this point. So excited to see them growing more and more as time goes on. It was really neat down in Denver to see the map that they had and people starting to put their names up and quite literally worldwide reach, which is awesome. So there are regionals. I'm going to selfishly say pay attention to the lower right, the Canadian one. We're in the works of putting that together and planning that alongside Liz and team at Doug. And so specifics are still up in the air. We had a chat while we were on the ground in Denver for those of us who could be there, just a little bit about the logistics of what that was going to be. Tentatively November. I think we might see them trying to shift that into December, but we'll get a firm date from them as soon as we possibly can. And then we will be turning over to all hands on deck, meaning everybody who attends these, everybody that we have, anybody that we can reach, we're going to ask if you want to participate in some way, shape, or form. It looks like it's going to be centered around Toronto. I'm not sure if we're going to have a virtual component, Rick. We haven't really talked about that, but
yeah, I'm sure we will. Depends how big it goes, because if we just do one track of mostly CRM, but I think we'll probably have at least 3 tracks, or CRM and Power Apps. I think we're probably going to have B, C, F, and O. And I know Richard and Amit, you've talked to Microsoft. Did we get any tentative dates?
So Microsoft do not allow anyone to kind of book the MTS space until maybe, I think it's like 8-ish weeks prior to the event. So we're seeing if they can make an exception now. They've changed their policy. So Anna Ashish, MVP, is actually in the process of having
Ashish, okay.
Yeah, more detailed chats with them. I only made so much progress, so we'll see. We'll see when they can commit and allow us to have the main rooms.
Okay, so I kind of know some senior guys over there, so maybe we should reconvene, Richard, and just have a conversation to see if we need to escalate things.
Yeah, if we could, that would be great, because I just hit it's all organized and owned now by the CIBC kind of Square management team that manage that property. So it's kind of hitting a brick wall if you want to book more than 2 months in advance.
Okay, so let's probably reconvene with Liz and just put a game plan together, and let's start to work on this now that we're kind of back from Doug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rick, let us know if I can help at all with that. XRM has some ability to book way in advance for stuff. So
awesome.
Okay. We're also interested. We'd also be interested in being part of the whatever's going on.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll let everybody know. I think the date is the key thing, and then we can kind of work backwards from the date and how much room we can get, and then how much Microsoft's willing to give us. I'd like it to be the first week of December. I think once we clear past all the conferences in October and November, and give us some time to work on it. But it's coming. We'll figure out what exactly we're going to be doing though.
Awesome. Sounds good. And if you happen to be traveling around, you can see there's other ones. I know that there was one in, I don't remember exactly where, but somewhere in Pennsylvania just yesterday or maybe the day before. And so they look like they've been well attended and picking up steam. So these are just essentially taking what we're doing here, but giving us an in-person component, which is awesome. If you missed DynamicsCon live, so the great event just happened in Denver. As I mentioned, they more than doubled. I'm pretty confident they more than doubled what they expected. And yeah, right. So awesome. It was great to see so many people. Frankly, I think they've outgrown the hotel style. I know they're going to the Hyatt Regency in Chicago, which I happen to have been to. It's a great space for it, so it'll be a little more connected. But it's exciting to see this event growing over the years. And if you aren't already planning on it, mark your calendars, have a look in advance for when tickets go on sale. Get your ideas ready to speak if you're interested in speaking. They had quite a few speaker submissions last year. I expect the same to happen in 2025. So if you've got ideas about what you'd like to present, start pulling that together, because you'll see the request for speaker call stuff, whatever they call it, out here shortly. And then speaking of session submissions, opened in April. I'm not sure if it's actually closed or not, but the event itself is coming up in November. This is
I think it closes today, actually, the 13th.
Today, the last thing? Wow.
Yeah.
So good catch. So if you thought you wanted to put it in a session and you haven't, do it today. And so you can see this is a virtual event. They've done this for a number of years. You can see the reach there, 5,000 plus community members. Events and everything, the sessions are all voted on by the community. They put everything out in that fashion. So great opportunity if you haven't attended. I personally struggle with some of the remote ones, but the way they do this one, and I'm obviously biased, but I'm trying not to be. I do find that I tend to hone in a little more on this conference. They seem to run it really, really well, which is awesome. So that's the bit of Doug. Liz, if you're listening, I hope I've done you justice, and if not, you can coach me on how to better do that next time. But with all that said, I think at this point we can turn it over, Rick, to you to hand it over to our speaker for today.
Yes, so we've got a very popular topic today, fabric. Everybody wants to know, what is fabric? How does fabric work? And why should I learn about fabric? And I sat in Scott Sewell's presentation at DynamicsCon. It was outstanding. So we're going to be doing one next month with Scott on MS Dynamics World, but we had this opening come up, and I said, hey, fabric is really hot topic. And then we had Amit and Madge available. So we thought we would bring them in and start telling us about what we need to know about fabric and dynamics. So I'm going to send it over to you, Madge.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rick. It's an absolute pleasure, everyone. And actually, Amit is our Microsoft MVP, and he's our lead for Fabric. So, sir, I'll pass it on to you.
So, Amit, do you have a slide deck, and you can start presenting?
Sure. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, man. So let me share my screen and let me know.
You know how to use Teams. You're an MVP, so you should be good.
Okay. Hopefully my screen is visible, and the one with the PowerPoint slides.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So fine. What I'm going to do is I do have some slides which talk about a little bit about my MS Dynamics, but as everybody here is an expert on Dynamics, I'm going to skip those slides a little quickly compared to the Fabric slides. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Amit Chandak, and I'm Microsoft Data Platform MVP and working on Microsoft Fabric almost for more than a year. I was part of a private preview where we have experimented a lot with the Microsoft Fabric, and over last 1 year we have implemented it almost for the 5 customers. We have seen it growing over last 1 year. Microsoft Fabric was released on 23rd May 2023, and now almost completed a year. There was a 60 days trial which was running since its beginning, and those 60 days are now reducing. Means we almost enjoyed a year of free trials on a capacity, which is pretty good capacity. So I'm going to today take you through a few slides, and if time permits, we will have a look at how Microsoft Fabric looks in action at one of our instances. So a little bit about my company. I work for Kanerika Software. We have 300 consultants globally, 8 years old company, delivered 70 plus projects, having 300 plus projects, 70 plus clients across globe. Most of our customers are in US region with little bit of presence in the Middle East and Australia. We do have key partnership we are a partner with Microsoft, but we are also specifically partners with the Fabric and Power BI. We are one of the few partners who appeared in the first list of Microsoft Fabric because of our commitment towards that. These are a few of the services which we are providing. I'm just going to skip that now. And so some of the industry solutions which we are working, especially these might include some of the services which include AI/ML and Copilot experience on all these. So these are audit and finance, shipping, logistics, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, and high tech. And these are some of our customers which we are working with. Okay. Fine. So today we will talk about few things. We will look at the analytics landscape, the requirements, and what Microsoft Fabric is, how it can be integrated. I do have a 10-minute video which I found on the Microsoft documentation where we can see how exactly we need to connect with the Dynamics 365. It is basically after the Power App and Dynamics has data been come to Dataverse, how do we connect? So we'll see if we can play around that. So let's look at the analytics landscape first of all. So just give me a second. Fine. So as you know, Microsoft Dynamics is one of the key players, and we try to address some of the challenges. So one of the challenges what we have is businesses are not able to respond enough to the changing market competitions. Percentage of businesses that reported experiencing a skill shortage is around 77%. Scalability and ability to grow and adapt business is key. Success is 86%. So these are some of the key business challenges which we wanted to address. And unified data analytics or modernization is something which is going to help us. Now, what we need in this entire cycle is basically, we have the data which might be lying in Dynamics or SAP or somewhere. But when we try to bring it on to the data analytics world, we end up creating some data silos. We end up not having an integrated system. And that is where we want a unified analytics, modern day analytics, which can help us solving these problems to have a single source of truth. Now, the entire objective of business intelligence analytics is, creating a single source of truth. But what is happening during this duration, during the implementation of this one, we have so many components to choose from that we end up creating the multiple source of truth within our own ecosystem of business intelligence and analytics. And that is what we wanted to try to avoid. We want a system which is try to break those silos, try to break those barriers, which is actually creating the multiple copies of data within our own business intelligence ecosystem. So we want a unified analytics system. Now, little bit about Microsoft Dynamics 365. Most of you are aware of about that. That 97% of the Fortune 500 customers is using Dynamics 365 or its products. 50,000 customers, 40,000 customers are using Copilots, and 30 years Microsoft is there in the business for all these things. Now, the next slide is one which is going to interest you. So, how Microsoft Dynamics have the integration with various services. So we do have, this Microsoft Dynamics, which is having finance, sales, supply chain services, and customer insights. You can easily make sure your data is available on Microsoft Dataverse, and that became your point of interaction with Azure OpenAI services or Microsoft Fabric. The other option is you have the graph APIs, and using those graph APIs, again, you can interact with Azure OpenAI services, and you can also bring in your interaction with Microsoft Fabric, which also include the analytics portion where you can use the notebooks to integrate and bring in data using these APIs. Other than that, you have a strong integration with Microsoft Power Platform and other IoT services, etc. So we'll look how the cloud scale need to be met. So Microsoft 365 Dynamics is basically the platform which providing you, sales, customer insight, customer services, supply chain, and finance. And we can have a large scale of data on that. And I'm going to just skip this slide because I think you all guys are Dynamics expert. I'm going to jump on the next one. So organization agility powered by the scales. So unified enterprise-wide data analytics, what we need, and that is going to be enabled with Microsoft Fabric. And we have so basically how we are going to bring those two things together is something which we wanted to look at. So now what is Microsoft Fabric? So one thing which has happened over the last few years where, we have this data analytics journey. So in our data analytics journey, what happens when you want to do a large scale journey? So in that large scale journey, we bring in few components, like we have data lake, we have data warehouses, we have data analytics, which is basically driven by your AI or ML algorithms. So all these components is coming in. Now, what happens is we have a lot of tools to choose from. So in the Azure world, we have, if you want to have lake, we have the ADLS Gen 2. In AWS world, we have the AWS Lake. Then if you go to the data warehousing, we have a lot of options, like we can have Azure SQL, Azure Synapse, we have Cosmos DB, tons of other options where we can keep our warehouse. Same way for the technologies of data transformation, which is key to for all these projects, we do have technologies like Data Factory, Azure Databricks, and then there are thousands of other tools which can help us out. Now, what happens when you bring in these kind of data, when you use these kind of tools, while you have a lot of options, a lot of flexibility, these comes with a lot of challenges, because every time you have a tool means you need to have license, you need to have configuration, and you need to have multiple copies of data, because your lakehouse may not understand the data which is there on the warehouse, and warehouse may not understand the formats which is there on the lakehouse. So they cannot communicate with each other. We might have to move the data from one location to another location, or one place to another place, just because that other technology can understand it better. So Microsoft Fabric try to address all these kind of challenges. So Microsoft Fabric is basically SaaSified, means it's a software as a service platform. It is an integrated platform which provides you various services, and those services include data integration via Data Factory. So whatever best on the Azure world, Data Factory, which is coming in, data pipelines and data flows, data engineering, Synapse data warehouse, what we have, that is coming in. And then we have data science, what you used to use in Azure Databricks, notebooks, which are coming in here. Again, you can use PySpark, Spark SQL, Python, and Scala, etc. for your data science experiences. Real-time analytics, which is Custo, is coming in here. Business intelligence will be provided by Power BI reports, paginated reports, Power BI dashboards, scorecards, etc. And then we have data activator, which is also known as, one of the component is known as Reflex, which is going to help you on real-time analytics. So let's say you have a data coming from Azure IoT Hub, which is streaming, and you want to capture that and want to take an action. Data activator can do. You have data already in Power BI, you want to take an action on that. Once the data get refreshed, you can use Reflex for this. Now, you will say, okay, this is all bringing together all the services. What is the difference which is going to make? We can buy all these services separately from Azure and combine it. No. So what Microsoft has done is, basically Microsoft has done a ground up work. And to that ground up work, what they have done is, anything which is a structured data will be stored in one common format on what we call as one lake, which is basically kind of a OneDrive for Fabric, is going to be stored in one format, which is named as Delta Parquet format. Now, what this single format is going to do for us is basically So what this single format is going to do is for us that now when the data factory saves it, it saves it in data packet format. When the data warehouse wanted to read it, or when the lakehouse wanted to read it, or when these experience wanted to write it back, they are actually reading or writing in data packet format. So all the engines have been redone to read and write from data packet format. So what happens if my structured data is in lakehouse, it's a table. Now warehouse doesn't need a second copy just for the sake because it doesn't understand the blob format or the CSV format or the format in which you might have saved. Now, when something is saved on data warehouse, it can be read by Power BI. Now Power BI can also read the data packet format, so it doesn't need its own format, the VertiPack format or the columnar format, because of which it was creating another copy of data from your Synapse warehouse or from your SQL warehouse, just because Power BI works better on the import mode. So now none of these tools are going to create second copy of data just for the sake because they don't understand the technology of the other tool or don't understand the storage format of other tool. So we have a common format. We have a common storage place where all these technologies can store. We also have the underlying platform preview to apply the security. And all these experiences or engines can also use one single capacity. While Microsoft Fabric allows you to have multiple capacities, we believe in one capacity per workspace. So we can have multiple capacities, or basically we can have the computation power or computing engines, multiple of them we can have. But yes, for all the experience, you will be able to use one single compute and you can manage with that. Now, before that, in the Power BI world, we never used to have capacities, which is starting from very ground, like say, very small capacities. The only capacity, which dedicated capacity you used to get is the P1 capacity, which used to cost around $5,000 per month. And prior to that, we used to have Pro license or PPU license, which have smaller capacities or the shared capacities available for you, which you cannot have control. But in the Fabric, that barrier has been broken. Every Fabric implementation can have a capacity, and those capacities starts from as low as F2 and as low as $250 per month. Those capacities start with those kind of cost. So what does it mean is you always have a dedicated capacities. So now whether you want to use one or many, that entirely depend on data volume or the kind of configuration we wanted to do. But we have one lake, we have one capacity, we have one copy. All these kind of stuff is which is making it really special platform. So let's move to the next item, which is basically how this landscape would look for Microsoft 365. So you have the Dataverse, and you don't require a copy for the Microsoft Fabric to work on that. So you have your data warehouse integration, data transformation, enrichment, data science, real-time analytics, business intelligence, all what you can achieve on Microsoft Fabric on your data, which is on the Dataverse, and you will not require a copy for that. Now, definitely, if you bring in the data from the Dataverse and you want to transform that and create a transformed copy of the data, definitely that copy would be created, and that copy is the one which can be used by Power BI. So again, you don't need a second copy. Now, let me move. Okay. Any questions as of now?
There's one. Sean, you got your hand up.
Thanks, Malcolm. Are you going to talk about kind of like pricing later on, Amit? I have a question about pricing, but I can wait if that's going to come later.
Please go ahead with the questions. I have not kept anything specific slide for pricing, so you can go ahead. I can answer right now.
Okay, awesome. I'll come on camera for it. I wonder about using Fabric versus Azure Synapse. As I understood it, Azure Synapse is going to clone, again, speaking from Dataverse, is going to clone your data in the Parquet files you said, put them in Azure in your own kind of Synapse that you can explore. But I understood that Fabric is going to keep it all in one lake, as you explained. And my question was around pricing. Like, how much storage is it going to take up? Because it affects your Dataverse storage. Is that correct when you use the Fabric integration with Dataverse?
Okay, so basically, what happens when Fabric, if you are not copying anything on the Fabric storage may not be charged to you, but I can very specifically look out when you are having something on Dataverse versus when you have the Fabric, do we have a charges for that? We do have some place where mirroring is allowed and mirroring is not charged. Every capacity has a mirroring limit. On that, it is not charged. So, but Fabric capacities, there are few things which is required for any Fabric capacity. One is storage, which is same price as your ADLS Gen 2 price, plus minus few amounts. So, which is around, I think, $0.23 per GB. That's the pricing. Then we have a capacity pricing and the transfer pricing. And here we are being told that, there will be no copy. So if there's no copy, ideally you should not be charged for that particular storage. But I can confirm that further.
Okay, awesome. Because I've had a really hard time finding online. Like if I have 2 gigabytes of Dataverse data, contacts, accounts, what have you, and I click on that very easy integrate with Fabric, how much storage will that take up? And I haven't really gotten a clear answer. So I appreciate anything you can find, Amit. This is awesome.
Sure, I'll find it out and give it. But my current understanding is that we should, if we are not transforming directly using, we should not need a storage. But definitely, if you want to transform and do it, how much of 2 TB we are going to transform and want to create a new transformed gold layer, and that much of the storage we need. And typically, usually it should be a little bit lesser than 2 terabyte of space what we need. Because we might not bring in all the data. Okay, hopefully my screen is still shared.
Yep, still looks good. I have 1 copy, 1 lake.
Okay, so why we are calling 1 copy? The reason for calling it as 1 copy is basically we are not going to create a copy unless it is most needed. Now, not only when we talk about Dataverse, no copy, there are mirroring which is available from Snowflake, from Oracle database, from Azure SQL. Now, in those cases, we do create a copy, and now those copies are not charged. So the amount of storage, now it do depends on what capacity you are. And so one of the best capacity we have is F64, which is equivalent of Power BI's P1, which is also around the $5,000 benchmark. But that is one of the best capacities in all the terms of kind of storage and what we are getting. But while mirroring is going to create copy of the data, you will not be charged up to one extent. Second is it's automatically going to take care of sync and everything. So you don't have to worry about, the insert updates and lighting down logics and everything. And on the same line, Microsoft is also trying to bring in other change data capture for other systems where you will be able to make sure that that you don't have to write too much of code for managing your incremental data. So 1 copy, anytime the copy is usable, we will be able to use it. What Microsoft Fabric does it, let's say if I create a lake house and it's a structured, if it is a structured table, it's going to create a structured data, it's going to create it as a table, and Power BI can read it and we can create a report, analyze that data. It do provide a SQL endpoint. Now, typically on the lake houses, we don't have a SQL endpoint, but we do have a SQL endpoint here. So the major difference between a lake house and a warehouse here is we have 2 entry points basically where we can store the data. So warehouses are typically SQL read write. We can do the ACID transactions on that. But lake houses are more like, lake houses where we can have a structured and unstructured data. But for structured data, both of them provide you SQL endpoint. In the lake house, that is a read-only SQL endpoint. But for warehouse, it is both read and write. So you will be able to write down on SQL. You should be able to do your transformation. Now, unified integrated environment, and we have seen so many experiences are there and they are just adding. So there is a long list. I'll try to show you when I go to, the Fabric UI, how many things which has already been added. And last 1 year, we consistently keep on adding that. And 1 compute, now 1 compute might not be an ideal scenario always, but definitely for all these experience to doing from, integration, collection, transformation, and analysis, I can use 1 compute if that suits my requirement. And so that is where, 1 single compute can do, like organization, which are pretty heavy on night on the data collection and pretty heavy on the analysis in the daytime. It's ideal that they don't use a second capacity. So I don't need to run my Synapse entire day. I don't want to my Power BI entire day. I have 1 capacity where both Power BI and my warehouses or my lake houses are working, and I can utilize that. Yes, there would be cases where you would have two capacities still, and that is supported in Microsoft Fabric. So again, what are the different kind of stuff what we have in which we can connect with the Fabric. So all your dynamics, what you have in supply chain, sales, and finance, all Fabric can interact, and it can provide you analysis capabilities on all your core data. Now, how we are going to integrate this is what so Dataverse is going to help us out. So basically, anything which is available on the Dataverse, without copying, we should be able to use it on Microsoft Fabric. So again, I think we discussed it in the previous slide. No copy, no ETL, direct connect via Dataverse, inside and democratized to all low-code apps, and using Fabric 7 core workloads, making informed decisions, improve quality, data governance. Data governance, again, Microsoft is integrating everything with the help of Preview. So we will get a lot of features which is coming out, and there will be an integration. There's already an integration happening with Fabric, where some of the things are already available via Fabric. And then there is definitely a Preview has its own thing to manage everything. So again, we're going to skip this slide, and now what we are going to do is I'm going to play this video, which is going to show you the how the integration would happen. And while I'm doing that, if there is some question, I can take it up.
Fire away, Sean.
Thanks, Malcolm. Just a quick question on it. On the Dataverse integration with the Fabric link you mentioned, do you know if it's, as I understand it, you have to sync all tables? It does not let you pick individually. Do you know if that's on the roadmap at all?
I think I need to check that. I'm a little bit not very comfortable with the dynamics part of it, but I'll check that out and confirm to you.
I appreciate it. And sorry for all my hyper-specific Dataverse questions. It's just hard to find any information on this.
No, it's good that you're asking that, because it's not every time that we know all the questions which user has. So if you're asking that, we should be able to get the answers for that. So hopefully you're able to hear the sound. Are you able to hear this one? Audio sound from my computer?
Nope. No sound, Amit.
No?
No.
You're not able to hear the sound?
Unless it's just me.
I can't hear it.
No.
Okay, hold on. Let me check this setting. I think computer sound I need to enable, then only. Just give me a second. Can you hear now?
No.
I remember correctly, there's an option on Teams when you share a video to send the audio.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
should
on
be
your
up in
computer.
Yeah.
the little thing that hovers.
Amit, I believe you do have to unshare and then reshare with sound enabled. I don't think you can change it once you've shared your screen.
You should be able to under your menu at the top. At least I can, but we may be on different versions.
Yeah, I think I got the option.
And Microsoft Fabric integration.
Now you're able to hear that?
Dynamics and Dataverse data
Yep.
is now available
Just quiet,
in
but-
Microsoft OneLake and Fabric with no ETL and no data copy required. You can use Fabric to work with all the world's data in OneLake. Data engineers can use SQL, apply AI, combine data, reshape and build summaries, and get insights of all your data. Those insights are not useful unless until you can take action and drive decisions. With a few clicks, your data in OneLake now appears as tables in Dataverse, and you can build low-code applications and build automations. Now we're going to look at a quick demo for that. I'm going to demo how data in Power Platform and Dynamics can be seamlessly accessed in OneLake and Fabric. Let's start with the Maker portal. This is where you can see the tables which are available in Power Platform and Dynamics.
Is that the highest you can turn it up? It's still really quiet.
Yeah, and let me see.
You can click on the table and under export, you will see link to Microsoft Fabric option. When we click on link, we establish a link between Power Platform and Fabric. For this, we would create a workspace and a lakehouse in Fabric.
That's the max I'm getting at.
Other artifacts. You can add additional tables like contact, and it will add it to the already linked workspace and lakehouse. This is the Fabric lakehouse. You can see there are tables. You can preview the data for these tables. There are different options available in Fabric, like
so I think Fabric side we can limit what tables we want.
Spark notebooks. But let's first look at what all artifacts were created part of the link. There is a data set, SQL endpoint, and lakehouse which were created part of the linking experience. Data sets can be used to create Power BI reports. We can create a custom report, or we can create a system generated report. Let's try the auto create option. As you can see, there is a report generated out of lead table. There are different charts. There is also the insight which is generated out of the lead data at the bottom. Let's explore other things which we can do in Fabric. Inside the lakehouse, you can view the data and create Spark jobs using Python. Let's create a new notebook. Okay. You can use Spark jobs to do data intensive operations with large data sets. Here is an example where I want to get the estimated opportunity size by state. For this, I'm doing a join and aggregation between account and opportunity tables. Let's run this. As you can see in the output, there are states.
So we have a Power BI experience which is integrated. Now we have a Spark experience which is also integrated here.
Table called opportunity by state. You would also be wondering if we can do T-SQL on top of this lakehouse data. For that, you can use SQL endpoint. This is a simple example where we'll do a select of top 100 records. You can obviously do complicated SQL with joins and aggregations as well. Here is another example where I'm creating a view which is doing a join between account and contact table. You can also use SQL endpoint in SSMS as well as code for programmatically consuming it the way you would consume like a SQL server. We have generated the insights in Fabric. Now let's look at how we can view them using Power Apps. Let's go back to the Maker portal. And I will create a virtual table over data in Fabric. To create the virtual table, we need to create a connection with SQL endpoint, which was created part of Fabric.
I think that was the major part what we have for the Dynamics. I mean, basically once you have the table, you can take it to the Microsoft Fabric using the selective table. And then in this example, it was on the lakehouse. And once we have on the lakehouse, we have different experiences like we have the data set, artifact, and as well as so data fact artifact has been renamed over last 1 year is now known as semantic model. And then we have the SQL endpoint, which is still there. So I'm going to show you one warehouse, one workspace, how does it look like? So basically, I'm using this app.powerbi.com. Usually, you do have something known as app.fabric.microsoft.com, and from there you can choose what kind of experience you want it to go. So the experience could be Power BI experience, basically means you want to go for analytics. Data factory experience, you want to bring in the data. Data activator means you want to run with real-time data, real-time analytics experience. Is there for your Custo. Then you have data engineering and data science and data warehouse. Kind of also we have the experiences. So this is Power BI experience, and most of the time this experience have most of the things which we require to enable the trial. And this was even available when we have the free users also, it was available. You have an option here for free trial. Right now I have a pro license, and I don't have a button because I have already started my trial. This trial can be started by clicking on start trial. And once you start the trial, you need to have one more setting which is need to be enabled to make sure that you are able to use Fabric. So you have to go to the setting admin portal, and it is same for the Power BI experience as well as the Fabric experience. You need to go ahead and enable the Microsoft Fabric. We have quite a few. Initially, it was one only. Users can create Fabric items. So this is the one which is must. Then you have others. So hold on, sorry, okay. So this is the one must enabled setting. Then other than that, we have data activator setting, which has also come in. Now we have setting for real-time dashboard, which is also there. And then we now recently got data mirroring. So for mirroring also we have one setting. And then there are some products like solution, which is available for retail data analytics, healthcare, for which also you can enable the settings. So once you start the trial, and if you don't want to start the trial, you need to have a capacity which you need to purchase. And using that capacity, you can also use Fabric. So if you are the one who want to purchase the capacity or use it, so you have, if you go to the capacity setting and you already have a capacity purchased, that should appear in your Fabric capacity, and you should be able to use it along with your different workspaces. So as you can see, we do have this capacity, which usually I keep. I have kept it only, this is hourly capacity, so it is switched off right now, but I do have a capacity which I can use for my Fabric experiences. And then I do have a trial one. Now these trial one, we had 7 trials with different capacities you can have. So it's not only one capacity, 7 people can have different capacities, which has been allowed at that time. And you can have, and then those people can share their workspaces and others can use those capacities. So it is not that I have a capacity, so I will only be able to use. We have the works, we can share our workspaces with other users not having a capacity, and they will also be able to do the Fabric work on that. I'll just show you one workspace and what kind of Fabric item we have, and then we'll take some questions. So if this is my workspace and it has a lot of items like lake houses, warehouses, semantic model, event streaming, all the things are available here. But if I go to new, and these are the old, everything what you see here is the older experiences of Power BI or older things that we are able to do in Power BI, like report, paginated reports, scorecard, dashboard, semantic model, data flow. They were also previously present. But if I click on the more option, that's where the real things comes in. So we have data activator, which is for real-time analytics. This is reflex, which is alerting mechanism. Data engineering. So when we call data engineering, what all experiences you're going to get or what all things you're going to get. So what we call is lakehouse, notebooks, environment. Environment is again when you're creating this the Python code and you want to run the jobs and etc. Job definitions, and then recently this graph APIs has also been added. Means we will be able to fetch the data from the graph APIs here. Data factory experiences from the Azure world, we are getting data flow. This is also coming from Power BI world, which is data flow Gen 2. You will be able to bring in the data and transform it together. That's what data flow Gen 2 can do. Power Query or the M language has been used there for the transformation. Then you have data pipelines, which can bring in the data at scale. And there is only small amount of transformation you can do, but data pipelines can call everything else. So data pipelines can call data flow Gen 2, it can call notebooks, it can have various activities like copy activity, lookup activity. So they also act for the orchestration of data or orchestration of entire data flow, which you are going to create to bring in data from source to target, including your transformation. Data flow, data workflow recently added to this one. And things keep on adding. Over last 1 year, we got too many things which is getting added here. Now for data science, you have ML models, experiment, notebooks, and environment. Again, notebooks can also act as your source of bringing in data because it uses Python or Scala, and we have connector for everything. And because we have connector, because of that, it can connect with most of the online sources and bring in data. Now, if you want to bring in on-premises sources, which might not be case with your Dynamics 365, which is online, but if you want to bring in the on-premise data, the data factory is your best choice because both data flow Gen 2 and data pipelines can work with the on-premise data, including Excel sheets, SQL Server, everything it can bring in the data. Then we have these mirror database like mirroring for Azure SQL, mirror Snowflake, mirror Azure Cosmos DB. Again, it's going to take care of all the data sync up. You don't have to worry much about that. And then also there are charges which are waived off for mirroring. Then industry solutions, as we have seen there in the we can enable, and once we enable those, we can actually use those here. Now, Power BI experiences, they are coming from the Power BI world. Like we can create reports, which are Power BI report, paginated report. Previously, they were also known as report designer, and we used to have the report, which is pixel perfect report in case of the SSRS world. There's the same coming as a paginated report, scorecard, dashboard specific to Power BI. We have a data flow previously available in Power BI. We call it now the data flow Gen 1, data marts and streaming data sets are other few things. Real-time analytics, you have event house, KQL query set, real-time analytics, event streaming, and reflex. So all these things are coming all together, and you can do analysis together, and you can talk across workspaces. Like it is. So what happens within a workspace, even if it is a lakehouse or warehouse, the data can talk with each other. We can just give fully qualified name and can talk with the data within a workspace. So it's like having one instance of the SQL server, and we have multiple databases, and we can see data through each other. Definitely, there are permissions for controlling that, but still we can do that. But if it is across workspaces, we do have something known as shortcuts, which allow us to see across workspaces, and we can bring in the data from Lakehouse 1 or Lakehouse 2 to another Lakehouse, which is available in different workspaces. Again, the same concept. We don't want to create unnecessary copies. So all these things, entire experience is about lesser and lesser number of copies as far as possible. So we'll take another round of questions, and I think I'm almost done with my presentation. Unless we want to see very specific thing on Fabric, I can showcase that. Am I audible?
There was a couple of questions in the chat. Let me just kind of follow up here. So there's a question about Fabric's Power BI capabilities. Will calculated columns be available in Power BI Online in the near future?
Okay, so what we would understood, see the calculated columns in the DAX are right now not available, but while you are doing your transformation, which is either you are doing on Dataflow Gen 2 or SQL or in, let's say, PySpark or Spark SQL, you should be able to create all those calculated columns. Definitely DAX calculated columns are not allowed yet. We do have support for some of the DAX calculated tables internally. Some of them are not available, like from the UIs, like calculation group is already being supported, which is kind of creating some kind of tables, which is only inside the semantic model, not in your lakehouses or warehouses. We do have a support for field parameters, which is not having UI right now, but if you're bringing because of migration from the import mode, or you are able, there's a video around that from Dynamics where you can do a little bit of coding and then you can bring in field parameters. But yes, right now there is no support for calculated columns, DAX calculated column, but we should be able to get that while doing the transformation from various other stuff what we have.
Awesome. I saw a thumbs up pop up there while you were explaining that. So I think question answered, but if not, feel free to chime in. There's another question. If you're building a Power BI report in desktop that is connected to a Fabric semantic model, would you just push it to have it work live in Fabric?
So what happens in Fabric when you're creating a report? So there are two primary modes when we connect with Microsoft Fabric with Power BI. So there is a new mode which is known as Direct Lake mode, which we should prefer. Now, when you connect using Direct Lake, it is very similar to the live connection experience what we have in the Power BI. Means you don't have much control in your hand. Everything is basically done at the semantic model level. So all your designing has to happen at the semantic model level. Your measures, your calculation group, your relationship, everything is already being done at the semantic model level. Now you are using that semantic model just like live connection. This is a direct lake connection, which we have to prefer. We do have a direct query connection. But direct query connection is going to have all the problems what we have in the past with the direct query mode. So this direct lake mode is the best of the world from import mode and direct query. So you have that scale performance, and you have very much similar features like import mode, where you have the scale for the import mode. So best mode to work with the Power BI was the import mode, where you have the data inside the Power BI. That is the kind of scale which is Power BI is going to give you on the direct lake. So once you connect with direct lake, only Power BI file will only contain visualization. You are able to create few more additional measure if required, but other than that, there is nothing which you are going to get control into your Power BI file. You just publish it, and you can publish it to a different workspace if you don't want to keep it. And usually because we are going to implement row level security and we don't want to keep our lake houses and warehouses in the same workspace as the Power BI report workspace, we don't want to have too many things. We usually create a separate workspace, but you can publish it to same workspace or different workspace. And then you can create app, or you can assign those reports to the end user for the consumption. Hope I'm able to answer that question.
Awesome. Yep, I see another thumbs up, so should be good. That's all the questions I see in chat. There was definitely some interest in the licensing question, and then also the just the overall footprint of data in Dataverse. What's that going to do to your storage and all that? So any follow-up information that can be shared would be awesome. Other than that, anybody got any other additional questions, items before we wrap up?
I'd like to quickly just jump in last year, also from Kanerika. I'm sorry, my dogs are going a bit crazy. Just want to thank you all and Rick as well once again for welcoming us to deliver this session. And just like to say to the group that we love working with partners, right? So if you need to work with us at any point in time and starting to support your fabric implementations, we would be more than happy to join in and support any way that we can. We also love working with Dynamics partners. We do not have Dynamics in-house specializations, so we would love to partner up with you. So yeah, please reach out, and thank you so much for having us.
Okay, Amit and Madge, thank you very much for joining us on this call. And I know Fabric's a big subject, so I'm sure it's something we're going to keep exploring. I know the session we're doing with MS Dynamics World next month, we got 3 times the normal amount of registrations for it.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people interested in Fabric right now. And I think, we got a lot of conversations and a lot of interest in AI, but I think people are really going to dig into this product because it's something that they can probably move on very quickly. And, a lot of companies have a lot of different data sets in different areas of the company. And if they can pull it together and use something like Fabric to make sense of it, I think that's something that appeals to a lot of people. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to add into that, I keep hearing people say, oh, AI is great, but it's only good if the data is good, right? If it's looking at our data and our data is garbage, then it's going to give us garbage responses. So yeah. I think that's what's starting to turn people's attention here. It's all kind of coming together. They're saying, wow, we can use this tool to help make sure we have data that's full of good and solid integrity, which will then fuel the AI to support us internally, enterprise-wide, in a much better way, right? And so that's full circle to some degree. So cool stuff.
Anybody out there in the group want to chime in, talk about what they've looked at, if anything on Fabric or anything they want to do on Fabric? Has anybody heard of Fabric before this meeting? Oh, sorry. It's kind of a new subject in this Microsoft world. Okay, all right. Will, do you have something to add?
Yeah, give me 1 sec. I'm just finishing off lunch. So yeah, I wanted to, I guess, add a point about Fabric since I've been working with ISVs around it. It's really like, I think the big value proposition that I've seen with different customers is you're SaaSifying your big data workloads, right? So what that means is rather than, and not necessarily is this the best news ever, but rather than needing a team of 50 data engineers and a 1-year migration to get all of your data unified into one place, you have that capability with OneLake built right into the tool. So with, a beginner data analyst, you can do a lot of really interesting things and connect a lot of really interesting data sets. And, the whole unification story that Amit was talking about, that's going to save lots of companies lots of money, because data silos are probably one of the most expensive items when it comes to analytics, and being able to kind of unify everything together really does a lot.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the data lake and Dynamics? How are people getting their data across to Azure from different sources?
Sure, yeah. There's lots of options. I'll say the top 4 that I am aware of is you've got Azure Synapse Link, Fabric Link, TDS endpoints, which Scott did a great presentation on while we were at DynamicsCon. And then there is using the Dataverse API. So I mentioned it in the chat. Fabric Link is definitely your low-code tool for making that integration between Dataverse and Fabric. You just click a button and it connects your tables. That obviously comes with limitations that you wouldn't get with something like Azure Synapse Link, where you have a bit more control over the number of tables, the incrementals, those kind of aspects of being able to integrate those things. And then the other 2 options, the TDS endpoint and the API, are pro code. So that's if you are trying to do intense transformations with your Dataverse tables. Like, for example, I just finished a project where, they didn't need all of their Dataverse tables, but the ones that they did, they needed to do some pretty intense transformations. So we used the Dataverse API to pull in the tables and then do a bunch of transformations and connect them to other data sets in OneLake. So yeah, there's lots of options. It kind of just, it's really dependent on what's the best fit for your specific problem, which is typical Microsoft stuff. But yeah, those are the 4 options.
Okay. Sean, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Will, love hearing that. I've been playing in kind of the same area. I'm more Dataverse heavy, but looking at Azure Synapse Link versus Fabric, like, will Azure Synapse Link go away is like my big question. I was talking to Chris Piasecki about it, who's like knows way more about these integrations than I do, especially on the Fabric side. And he was talking about how like they do the same thing, except that with Fabric, they're putting it in Azure Synapse Link and then in your Azure storage as opposed to your Dataverse storage. And like Will said, even though it's in Azure, you get to pick your tables. Like, okay, so if Fabric lets you pick your tables, then what is the point of ever using Azure Synapse Link again, unless you needed it in Azure for a particular reason? And like, that's what I'm trying to see. Like, well, what's the plan for these 2 tools? Because right now it's unclear. Like, why are they both there?
Yeah, Sean, are you with Microsoft?
I contract for them.
Oh, okay. So just looking at your LinkedIn profile, you're a Microsoft guy. I'm thinking, wow, we can ask you that question.
Yeah, I would hope you have the answer.
I could email the right people, but no, I'm a contractor and I love that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the unofficial answer I can give just from personal experience, I know Scott can do a much better job at this, but Synapse Link takes an extra step, right? It has to convert everything to CSV file before it does the conversion to Delta Parquet, from my knowledge of his presentation. So I would think, as Fabric Link continues to develop and you no longer need that redundant step, there's a possibility that the Fabric Link is more beneficial than using Azure Synapse Link. And again, I think it is dependent on the cost, right? Because I know with Azure Synapse Link, that level of granular control comes at a compute cost. Like, you can obviously spend a lot more on just that than your whole capacity in Fabric. So yeah, I don't know if they'll do away with Synapse. I know everything is about Fabric right now, and it will be for the next little while. So I could see them continuing to push Fabric Link over Synapse Link, but there has to be options for others that don't benefit from Fabric Link in comparison with Synapse Link. So that's just my opinion. There's no Microsoft anything on that as far as I've seen.
Yeah, and that pricing point you just said of like, okay, it takes Azure compute power, you have to pay for that in Synapse Link. But as I understood it, Fabric is still using like a Delta Lake and is still using those Parquet files like under the hood. Like it's almost identical as far as I understood it. So I'm like, okay, so I don't have to pay for the computing power, but I got to be paying for something. And I want to know what Fabric is making me pay for under the hood. And that's always been my curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you something after. I have some stuff that you could use that will probably help with that.
So I just put in the chat the presentation that we're doing for MS Dynamics World with Amit and Scott Sewell. I think most of us know Scott, ex-MVP, now works for Microsoft, and he's part of the Fabric team. And I was at his session at DynamicsCon Live, and I don't know why they put him in a small room. We were standing in the hallways trying to get near it. So excellent presentation, and we're lucky enough to get him to be able to do that. Unfortunately, he was on holidays, so he couldn't come in today to our presentation. But by all means, that's the one where we got 3 times the crowd, and I think it's both Fabric and the fact that we've got Scott presenting it. So you know, make sure you can jump on that call, because that should be a good one.
Awesome.
Okay. So I think this is Fabric Part 1, guys. I think, you know, it's definitely going to be something as data becomes a bigger issue, right? We've all kind of pretended we had good data and, you know, we can pull up reports and that. But now with AI, people want consolidated data. I want to know my business across divisions, across applications, and so on and so forth. So I think data is going to be huge for all of us for the next couple of years. So the more we know about AI and what we can do, the more we know about Fabric. And I think AI is going to take some interesting twists when we start looking at it through Fabric and using data lakes and things like that, as opposed to doing it at the application level. So put your seatbelts on. This could get good.
You know, it's funny. You know what you don't hear anymore, or very often anyways? The term big data. Remember, like 5 years ago, that's all you heard. Every conference, it was big data this, big data that. I think everybody's just accepted the fact that there's just a lot of data, and now we got to do something about it.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast today, and a guy was calling, most companies are data hoarders. You know, they have data that's 10, 15, 20, 25 years old, and they let these AI tools loose on it, and they start pulling up documents from, you know, 1998, right? So that's a problem. So I think what we're seeing in data lakes and things like that is going to become more relevant to us. So excellent. Thanks, Match. Thanks, Amit. Great presentation. I think are we taking July and August off, Malcolm?
Yeah, we you know, everybody's going on holiday, so.
Okay. All right. So if anybody wants to get on the email notification for these meetings, just please send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat.
And if you have ideas, if there's things you'd like to present, I know we're starting to think a little bit about the fall. Sean, you're on my radar because I know you've got a couple of great sessions that we'd love to have you present, and then others will. I don't know if you put presentations together, but based on how you just answered some of those questions, you absolutely should. So great to hear from you too. Yeah, and anybody else, if you have ideas, thoughts, comments of content you'd like to see, please shoot it out, and we would be happy to entertain it.
Okay, we got lots going on, and we've got our big show we're going to have, I think, in December. So if I've got your email, you'll be up to date on that and part of the planning committee. And we'll probably be putting a call for speakers out for that. Hopefully sometime in August, we'll get around to that. So it's going to be a busy fall season for the Canadian group as we combine our efforts with some other Dynamics and Power Platform user groups. So I'm looking forward to it. Everybody have a great summer, and we'll see you in September, if not sooner.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Have
Bye.
a good one, guys. Thanks, everybody. Take care.